Hello and welcome. Have you ever stopped to think about how a single ancient date is calculated so precisely that it can be observed all around the world every single year? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. It's this incredible mix of scripture and astronomy, and it brings millions of people together. So let's dive in. So here's the central question, right? How in the world do you get millions of people living in completely different time zones on different continents to all commemorate an event on the exact same day using a calendar that's thousands of years old? Well, it's not just a random pick. The answer, as you'll see, is literally written in the stars. This infographic here pretty much gives you the whole roadmap at a glance. Now, I know it might look a little complicated, but don't worry, we're going to break it down step by step. And to make it really clear, we're going to walk through the calculation for a specific year, 2026, which lands on April 2nd. Let's find out exactly how we get to that date. Okay, first things first. This entire process doesn't start with a calendar you'd buy at a store. Nope. It starts by looking up at the sky, at the incredibly predictable clockwork-like movements of our solar system. Step 1 is all about finding the spring equinox. You can think of this as our main astronomical anchor point. It's that moment every year, right around March 20th or 21st, when the sun is perfectly aligned over the equator. It's this fixed point in time that gets the whole ball rolling. So once we have our anchor, that spring equinox, the very next thing we have to do is find the beginning of the months. And when you're working with a lunar calendar, well, that means you've got to find the moon. Now, this is where things get really precise. We aren't just looking for any new moon. The method is very specific. We need to find the first visible crescent moon that shows up nearest to the spring equinox. It's this exact celestial alignment that acts as the real starting signal for us. Okay, so let's apply this to our 2026 example. Astronomers can tell us with certainty that in that year, the new moon nearest to the spring equinox will first be visible on March 19th. And there you have it. That date, March 19th, becomes day 1 of the biblical month we need to be tracking. This brings us to step 3, which is giving this day its proper name. According to the biblical lunar calendar, this day is called Nisan 1. But here's a really key detail. In this system, the day doesn't start at midnight, it begins at sunset. So as the sun goes down on March 19th, 2026, the month of Nisan officially kicks off. So we've got our starting line. Sunset, March 19th, 2026 is Nisan 1. From here on out, it's actually just a simple countdown to find the right day. And the magic number for this countdown is 14. Step 4 tells us to count 14 days forward, starting from the beginning of Nisan. This number is absolutely fundamental. It connects directly back to the original Passover observance. So how do we land on that 14th day? Well, starting with Nisan 1 as our first day, we just count forward 14 full days. This brings us right to Nisan 14. And here's a really cool astronomical tidbit. 14 days after a new moon almost always lines up with a full moon. So you're basically at the midpoint of the lunar month. This timeline just puts it all together perfectly for 2026. You can see it starts with that new moon on March 19th. That's when Nisan 1 begins at sunset. The spring equinox happens right around then. You count forward 14 days, and that brings you to April 2nd. So when the sun sets on April 2nd, the day of Nisan 14 officially starts. And that leads us to the final step, which is the observance itself. The memorial is held after the sun goes down locally on that calculated date. So for 2026, that means it's held after sunset on Thursday, April 2nd. This makes sure that the commemoration is happening on the correct biblical day, Nisan 14, right as it begins. So we've just walked through the how, all 5 steps to get the date, but you might be wondering about the why. Why this specific method? Well, the answer comes down to 3 foundational principles that guide this whole process. It really boils down to 3 core reasons. First, the whole thing is based on the biblical lunar calendar. Second, it lines up perfectly with the date of the original Passover, which was Nisan 14. And third, all of this precision serves one big purpose: to make sure everyone, no matter where they are in the world, can observe this on the exact same day. You see, this is so much more than just an exercise in astronomy. It's a very practical method with a really profound purpose: to create a unified global commemoration. It means someone in Tokyo and someone in New York are both observing the event on the same designated day, Nisan 14. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? In a world filled with different calendars, time zones, and cultures, what does it actually take to bring millions of people together on one single evening for a shared purpose? Well, as we've just seen, it takes a little astronomy, a huge respect for history, and a clear method that's followed all over the world.